You're listening to a download from the outdoorstation.co.uk. Number 567.
Say that again.
Last one, our first one was Spontaneous wind shirt.
Was it a wind shirt, was it?
What? Wind shirt. I'm pretty sure you got, I think the first one here we got like £100, £200 the first week.
Yeah, I know, it was so exciting.
It was like, yes! It's like when the chickens first lay their egg.
Yeah, it was.
Can't believe that.
It was. We sold a lot of those wind shirts, didn't we?
Yeah, the size of an apple.
Yeah, they were really good. Right, well, the time's come, my love. This is it.
You turning it off?
Yeah, I'm going to turn it off. Let's have a quick look. There's still 14 people online.
Really?
Yeah, do we keep it open?
No, curry hasn't come yet.
No, we did say 1:30 and it's almost 2:30 now.
This is true.
So one final check to see if there's any more orders come through. No, that's it then. So
it is done.
It is done. Just need to go through the whole process now of turning it off. Right, so nobody can buy anything now. And change the front page.
And then we just wait for the courier and I'll take all the post to the post office.
Yep. And that was it. That was the moment we turned off almost 20 years of business online. And I'm recording this a few days later now. It's been a bit of a roller coaster of emotions, as one might imagine. Rose and I have had our moments where we wonder if we've done the right thing, and feeling generally a bit lost, to be honest. I've had various friends who have, shall we say, left their jobs in senior management or retired or whatever it may be, and along with it they've lost their identity. And so there's been times where I've sat over many a coffee with friends helping to rebuild their confidence again, to be honest. Oh, pigeons. And the dog has now gone wild. Pigeons! So I'm out here now, taking my early morning walk with Pip the dog, and she is enjoying the fact that the farmer has now cut all this long wet grass and she can actually get through the undergrowth much easier to find her prey. She's definitely getting older now and consequently is nowhere near as fast as she was, so the prey's in pretty safe grounds. This is a lovely walk though. This is a bridle way. I'm sort of between two hedgerows at the moment, which thanks to all the rain are now well over my height, and I can see the blue sky and the clouds and the sunshine above me, which makes for a wonderful feeling, because we've had some pretty lousy weather, haven't we, these last, months. I'd say a few weeks, but months. Cut the grass last night and I left it, unfortunately, an extra week because of the weather, and it's as thick as anything. Anyway, first world problems. So here we are now, reflecting on the fact that I say it's just short of 20 years, for about 3 or 4 weeks, I think. We think we started late June, July. So just shy of 20 years with Backpacking Light. And it's been a fascinating journey, not only from the actual content and the things that we've done and the items that we've sold and the places we've been and all that sort of stuff, but also to see how business has changed. It has changed so much. And where's the dog gone? There she is. And when you think about it, when we first started, I think I'd got into the lightweight range of ideas and products and philosophy, and that was down to doing the TGO challenge first time in 2004, carrying far too much stuff, and as a result of that, being aware of Ray Jardine, and I read his book Beyond Backpacking, where it was the lightweight philosophy, which basically means don't take all your fears, stop reducing the kit, and don't carry everything, which is a mistake I made when I did the first TGO. I think my pack was 23 kilos and I carried everything for the whole 2 weeks rather than doing drops and so on. And consequently, when I got home, my feet were in a complete mess. So in that trip I learned an awful lot about an awful lot of things. Partly my own, well, can't say lack of experience because I've done a lot of travelling, a lot of backpacking, but my lack of awareness of how things had changed. So it was really good. And the other thing it did was introduce me to a lot of people who were on the challenge that were using equipment and items I'd never seen before. They had bought them directly from the States, or they had obtained them through other sources, or whatever it may be. But there was, Gossamer gear, rucksacks, there was some Henry Shires shelters, I think, and a few other things which, once I'd asked them where they got it from and what the story was, realised that they weren't available in the UK. So Rose, who was a teacher at the time, primary school teacher at the time, she was going for senior management positions and pipped to the post every single time. She was so disheartened, which was such a shame to see, as well as incredibly frustrating to have worked for 20 odd years in the teaching profession only to be kicked into the touch every time. And it was always a man, primary school education, they always loved to have a male head teacher. So she was always beaten by a guy. So that didn't do her enthusiasm and confidence much good. Anyway, so in 2004, I got to, where did I start from? Mallaig. Started from Mallaig, got to the public phone box, because that's what you did in those days. Phoned her up, I said, right, I'm here, I'm fine, I'm starting. She said, good, because you've got 2 weeks to work out what we're doing, because I've handed in my notice. Which was a bit of a shock at the time, to say the least. Because there I was, a man being kept in the style in which I like to be kept by a hard-working teacher, and she basically said, get yourself sorted. And to be honest, I'd had a pretty unfortunate experience with a business partner that I'd gone into business with a few years before, who had basically done a runner with all the money, left me high and dry, and with a lot of responsibilities because I wanted to ensure that I paid all my debts, etc. Yeah, it was a pretty tough time, financially as well as emotionally, and that's when I think I went through my depression stage for a year or so. I just couldn't get myself motivated, although I was interested and fascinated about lots of things. Actually pulling my finger out and getting things sorted was not high on my agenda. And as you know, we've had a podcast or two in the past talking about depression and such things, so let's not linger on that. Anyway, so the option to, wow, they've cut the grass down everywhere, it's brilliant. Shall I walk down the field or around the edge? Around the edge, I think. So what happened? So, this way, Pip. So, yes, so 2004. So while I was walking across Scotland, obviously talking to all these guys, realised that actually there was a business there to import products from the US, from cottage manufacturers, and sort of learn and grow fairly rapidly on the lightweight philosophy. And to go along with that, Outdoors Magic untitled.com, which was a sort of a central place where most backpackers and things hung out at the time. There weren't many other options. Were very supportive. I put a few suggestions and ideas and comments on the forums, and on the whole, people were, we would support you if you sourced all this equipment. So that was basically the instigation of the Backpacking Light, and we started. And I remember that first week, the thrill of the first few orders that came in, and a few weeks later I started doing the podcasting, occasional videos that are podcasting, because YouTube had just started in that year as well. Podcasts had become a word that was being bandied around by people who were interested in such things and trying to get it into mainstream. And there was a whole UK podcast movement which was very, very early adopters. And like most early adopters, they spent a lot of the time talking about how great it was to be able to podcast. But in actual fact, they didn't really have any content that was of practical, useful information. So there wasn't that much reward coming out of the podcasts. And there was lots of discussions about music and copyright and all this sort of stuff. And interestingly, although I didn't go to the meeting, what was the British one called? Just trying to remember the name. They had sort of created their own little sort of collective group to represent British podcasting, or the UK podcasters or something. And the BBC called them in for a meeting. Now, bearing in mind, the BBC at this stage hadn't really started any of their watch again, listen again podcast system, as far as I remember. So we had this situation where, although I wasn't at the meeting, I got it firsthand from Dean afterwards, that there was definitely the feeling that the BBC were aware of this movement and this rise of the independents, and the fact that the independents were getting themselves together and starting to organise themselves, that they had an underlying fear that we would usurp their position in some way. And so they bought the drinks and were very polite and very enthusiastic about what everybody was doing. But my gut feeling was the BBC was sussing everybody out to basically see if there was going to be a competition or a clash with either their plans, or to see how organised the British podcasters were to bury them, if you like. And when you look back at history and look what it's like now, that's exactly what they've done. They've totally dominated the podcast marketplace. They have swamped. Remember how they've changed from listen again, watch again, view again, and now it's all about podcast. Listen to the podcast, download the podcast. And of course, it doesn't sit very well with a lot of the independents, myself included, when the BBC, who have also got our money behind them, are winning all the awards and getting all the notifications and awareness for the podcast content. Anyway, that's just a little bit of background history. So over the last 20 years we've seen that change, and podcasting obviously now become quite a serious medium and format, and accepted format. And I started podcasting, I think it was in the October. We started the business in 2005. That's right, because it was 2004 I met everybody, did all the research, started it in 2005, and then in October 2005 I started doing podcasts. The word podcasting was supposedly in the English language. I think that particular release of iTunes had this directory title which had never been there before, which was very exciting, got everybody excited. So in 2005, October 2005, started podcasting and talking to a whole variety of different people. And when obviously, like everybody, when you listen back to your first few shows, you cringe, because it was very poptastic, mate, and I had come from the Independent Radio Network and I was talking like this all the time. Right, well, we're going to speak to... anyway. So yeah, I might play some of that at some stage, but it's by today's standards dreadful. But it's still, I was doing it. And now the thing was, what I did was I got into talking to a whole variety of people. And let me just give you a bit of background. Thinking about it, the reason I started was that the reps that came to see us said that they couldn't reach the weekend staff. So obviously, the reps, when they were working, they were doing Monday to Friday, and generally most of the foot traffic was at the weekends, and they were unable to reach and explain product details to the weekend staff because they're usually part-time, etc. So I suggested that perhaps they talk to me about products or whatever it may be, and we then put the podcast out and obviously promote it that way. So that's the reason I started the podcasting in the first place. And then obviously it was a fairly narrow field as regards, I was interested in backpacking light type products and things along that nature. But it's, as we know, it's a massive industry and there's a whole variety of different interests. So it sort of changed and evolved over the years. Obviously became the Outdoor Station because I wanted more of a generic title that would cover many aspects, and I wasn't necessarily fixed to lightweight backpacking, although that was a particular interest. And during the first couple of years, what I used to do was compile a whole pile of interviews, because people at that stage were still unaware of what a podcast was and how to use it. So I bought myself a CD duplicator, and I'd make a master CD up of, 10 or 15 interviews I'd done with different people, and send a CD out with every purchase. And of course, at that stage, people still had CD players, or they certainly had CD players on their computer. And it blew up, basically. Backpacking Light really took off. All of a sudden, we were inundated with orders. The download figures and the interest in the podcast shot up as well. And I guess it was probably the social media of its day in some respects, because at the time there wasn't any Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, etc., distracting people. You had basically the UK bloggers, and that was there was a niche area there of people that were interested in the backpacking. Oh, can you hear that skylark? Always hear skylarks in this field. It's beautiful. What was I saying? Bloggers. So there wasn't any other distractions, and YouTube had only just started. And I heard the other day, by the way, when YouTube first started, the intention was it to be a dating site, and I didn't know that. Apparently, the first few videos that are on there were, "Hi, I'm Bob. I've got 2 cats, a dog, and a very long hairstyle. Come and see me sometime." But it rapidly changed because YouTube realised that people were uploading the general stuff. Anyway, so I started doing YouTube videos as well. And I didn't, in all honesty, when you look at the Paul Messners of the day and various other people, Wild Bear and so on now, they're much more focused. They know exactly what they're doing, what they're all aiming for, and they're really pushing out some content. But at the time, I was obviously trying to run the business. Rose and I were stacked out. It was just us two. And the combination of that, trying to do podcasts, trying to keep that side going because it was obviously working for us, and also the sorting out the interviews. And I could manage to do a phone interview in the evening, starting at 7 o'clock, and I'd be all done and dusted. So they'd be interviewed, edited, posted. I can't remember where I posted it. I think I just posted it on the podcast feed, because there was no websites as such then to post on. Edited, done, sorted and finished, and I'd be down the pub by 9:30, because Thursday nights was the nights I would do it, and that was when the boys would meet down the pub. And that was my routine for months. But now, oh my goodness, you've heard me mention it before. I don't want to go on about it, but blooming heck. I can do the podcast in the same sort of time now, an hour or so, talking to people, etc., editing and so on. Even the video editing doesn't take that long. It's the social media. And I've been doing some other interviews because I've also, we'll come on to that in a second, but interviews with social media people generally about in another capacity. And I realise I really know nothing, absolutely nothing about social media. And I need to get that resolved for the next stage, which I'm coming on to. So hopefully I've covered everything there. So I've covered the business, and then we grew. Backpacking Light grew. We moved out of we had a sort of fairly large workshop shed thing at home, which was our storage. We outgrew that and went to commercial units in Hanley Swan. I put on a couple of shows which went down really, really well, and I thought that was going to be the future to do those. Sort of smaller, intimate shows with much more niche range of products. But they went down well, and I don't know. Then the crash happened, and then all of a sudden things started to get tight. So we then had to reduce from 2 units to 1 unit, and then over a period of time, we recognised the fact that it would be better if we could find a place to work from home again. So that's what we did, and the last 7-8 years ago, bought a new place, and I've built a unit there, which is big enough for running the business and running the studio. And we did intend to have shows there as well, because there's an orchard. So it would have been perfect to put a few tents up down there and show people around. But unfortunately we had COVID and so on and so forth. So the end result is basically we ran out of steam. The whole website got tired, all the rest of it, and we've just got to recognise that things have moved on. The business has changed. Reps no longer come and see us. I haven't seen a rep for 2-3 years. Everything now is digital, which is great, but it also gives you very little enthusiasm. So when we first started, the reps would come round and go, "Hey, we've got this new thing for you. It'd be ideal for your marketplace. It's this, it does this, it's blah, blah, blah." And we go, "Great, we'll have 10 of those." And that slowly changed over the years. And things got more digital. We still had reps when we had the units out at Hanley Swan, and then the last 10 years I'd say it's really accelerated. They've all got a very similar back office now, they say. So it means that when you order products, they basically say, "Well, what's new?" via email, and the admin staff reply saying, "Here's the direct link to the catalogue, and here's the link to our back office, help yourself." And that's the total amount of interaction you get with most brands and wholesalers. So consequently, it's like I have no idea what's new. All right, there's a new label stuck next to certain items, fair enough. But in what way is it new? Is it going to excite my marketplace? Are the materials eco-friendly? Is it sustainable? Is it being made with longevity in mind? Those questions are not answered on a digital page or on a sheet of PDF. And consequently, naturally, our enthusiasm for integration with the products and the brands has just waned. But it's not just our industry. I've spoken to a lot of people in different industries, and they're all saying the same thing. All the corporates have decided it's much cheaper to get rid of the reps, make it all digital, send out a link, and say, "There you are, help yourself." And then what happens is you find that they have also got a shop online, which they class as their advertising to show people the full brand range. But it is possible to buy the goods there at full price, or possibly even discounted price if they're doing a clearance. So consequently, all those deals and bargains that I picked up years ago, so I'd contact a company and say, "Right, you've got a new rucksack. Have you got any of the old rucksacks?" "Yes, we've got 20 of different sizes left." "Right, I'll take the lot." And it was great. And then you could say, "Okay, I've got all these rucksacks. We're doing a clearance deal," and everybody got a bargain. But now it doesn't happen. And now, in fact, the other thing, as well as Amazon and AliExpress, that have messed things up is Sports Pursuit. I don't know if you've been on the Sports Pursuit website, but if you go there, basically they are selling lots of well-known brands, slightly older models or types of the jackets or rucksacks or tents or whatever it may be, at trade price. So the smaller independents like ourselves contacting these brands saying, well, we'll take 10 or 15 pots, pans, tents, whatever it may be, they say, oh no, it's all been shipped out to Sports Pursuit. And as good as it is for the consumer to have obviously a range of products at discounted prices, from the independent's point of view that used to put a lot of effort into trying to find things like this and get excited about it and promote them to the customer base, become harder and harder. Anyway, things have changed, and looking on the bright side, new blood is required, and new enthusiasm, and also a new understanding of social media and how to make the most of it. So Rose and I decided to close the business, and we spoke to the very nice guys at Valley and Peak Gym, and discovered that their ethos is very similar to ours, in the sense that they're a small family company. They want to know about all the products in detail. They like to talk to people directly on the phone. They have a much more intimate relationship with people rather than the Amazons of this world and similar. And consequently, we decided to pass on the name to them to use as they wish. So we haven't sold the business, in case everybody's thinking that's the case. We have ceased doing what we are doing, and I'm quite happy to pass the name across. So they've taken ownership of the name, and they are doing their own thing, but supporting the same customer base and ethos that we were promoting for the last 20 years. But they've gone back to basics, and they've got a much more enthusiasm for it. We have definitely got to the stage where we've run out of steam, which is okay. It is okay. We've certainly spent this week doing a lot of sleeping. I didn't realise how exhausted we were, and we are certainly looking forward to our first holiday that isn't outdoor related in 5 years, and we haven't had a 2-week holiday in 12 years. That's the commitment you have to make when you run an outdoor shop, or an online shop rather. So it's been a long time since we've actually gone somewhere, put our feet up and actually just switched off. Not necessarily a great hardship, because we've been very fortunate to do, walk Skye or do the TGO, etc. But it's all been outdoor related. So consequently, we haven't actually stopped doing the outdoor stuff, if you like, for 12 years. I'm not asking for any sympathy. It's just the way that it is, and that's the commitment you make when you run a small business, really. Anyway, so what's happening now? I'm sure that's at the back of your mind when you're listening to this ramble. So, as going back over the years, if you're a regular listener, you'll know that my passion has always been audio, radio, and video. And I've done, in recent years, done many live streams as well. And the new building is basically a purpose-built studio as well as shop space, but that shop space is emptying, so that gives me a studio too. And I can now put my efforts into rejuvenating and relaunching the outdoor station and everything associated with it. So I'm hoping that you'll stay with me and you'll enjoy the variety of content that I'm organising to put together. And that is a whole range of things. It's partly trip reports, going on hiking trips, maybe for a few days, maybe for a bit longer, perhaps some bivvy trips. I know that's of interest to people, bivvies and tarps. Gear reviews, I'm looking to do gear reviews as well, get hold of various bits of equipment and just give it a once over. And I'll do this all on audio as well as video. Some things are more appropriate for video than audio. I'm also hoping to carry on doing some more live streams, and perhaps taking the equipment out and camping one night and doing a live stream from a camp, which I think might be interesting. I'm hoping to meet up with people that I've met and made friends with over the years, and perhaps do a food challenge, get together somewhere in some obscure OS reference, map reference, and say, right, we'll meet here on this particular date, bring your food, let's have a homemade dehydrated food contest, see whose food tastes better. And then next week or the week after, I think it's the week after, I'm up to the outdoor trade show. Hello dog, yes, we'll go back in a second because you're hungry, aren't you? And I'm looking to interview people there, partly about products, but actually more about sustainability and their plans for the future, to see that they are considering where we're all thinking at the moment about our use of the planet, endlessly buying gear, and all the other environmental and sustainable and longevity issues that are becoming more and more important. So I think sharing a bit of information about that would be good. And I'm going to work on the website as well. That needs some work. Basically, I can now spend all my time on the outdoor station and things associated with it. Talking of which, I'm also offering myself under a different business name as a producer for people. So if they're wanting to do podcasts, or if they're wanting to do live streams, possibly videos, but I'm more interested in live streams and podcasts, then perhaps they can rent my services, and I will just arrive with a complete studio set up, and we can work with them to promote their services, products, whatever it may be. So to give you an idea, I've done went up to the NEC. I think people may be aware of that, and I did a 3-4 hour live stream from the NEC, beaming it back to a studio. The studio laid all the graphics on it, made it look nice, and sent it out. And that worked out really well for many of the people I spoke to. And I've also done it for the National Running Show as well. Hope to do it for a few more shows if I can, generally with a leaning to the outdoors, naturally. And I did the local Chamber of Commerce as well, so it was a business one, so that was through the other business, so that wasn't the outdoor station, that was something else. So if anybody has any interest in that or wants to ask any questions about it, I shall put the appropriate link somewhere on the show notes. So I think that's about all I've got to say, just to fill everybody in with where we are. Thank you if you have been a customer. Thank you so much. Your support and feedback comments have been greatly appreciated. And certainly as we were closing down, we have had hundreds of comments from people, which have been really touching and very emotional at times, saying how we've formed part of their outdoor experience, or getting them back into backpacking, or the joy of lightweight stuff, or whatever. And that's been really, really good. And we are very grateful. Oh, hang on a second, dog. We're extremely grateful for people taking the time to tell us that. So, skylarks singing away again, which is beautiful. So I think I'm going to bring this to a close now. I just want to say thanks ever so much for supporting us if you have been a customer. Like I say, thanks for downloading this and listening to it. Podcasting is obviously much more a normal thing now that people are aware of and know what to do, how to use it, etc. No matter how you listen to it, whether it's on your smart speaker or on any of your podcast aggregate hosting titles, Spotify, etc. And I hope to be back very soon with content that you will find enjoyable. So until then, as always, take care out there, and bye for now.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. To hear or see more from our extensive free library, please visit theoutdoorstation.co.uk.